The other place that false echoes come from is side lobes. When a radar transmits, it transmits a lobe, but also as a result of just Mother Nature, you get these side lobes coming off. So if anybody that boats on a North Point, I know a lot of Skokie Valley guys are here. When you come out of North Point, there's that wall from Prairie Harbor Yacht Club. It sticks up about 30 feet off the water. It's quite a tall steel wall, and it goes about 400 feet out into the lake. So it's like a really good radar target. And as you come out of North Point, you'll see this band of noise it's in a circle going around the circle like that. Those are the ones that are caused by side lobe false echoes. They'll always be on the same arc. In other words, the same distance from the center. Those echoes are also to be ignored. And anybody that goes on a North Point, it's really easy to demonstrate that because they are just, it's really, until you get about a quarter mile out, it's just awful. It's just, your screen's just full. So anyway, that's the basic operation to avoid collision, stay safe. You can also navigate with a radar. Obviously, if you're I always like to use Lake Michigan because I boat on Lake Michigan. If you're in Lake Michigan going north, you'll see the shore off to your left there. Well, you know that the shore is to the west of you there, and that's the basic form of navigation. Is you're going north because you're keeping the land to your left. But there's other ways to navigate with it too. One of the things you like to do sometimes is to see if a target is moving. You're moving, so if there's a target out there that's just a fixed buoy or something, you're moving like this. It appears to be moving like that. That's relative motion. It's moving, but it might just be a fixed target. In order to tell whether it's moving or not, you have to find out its range and bearing from you and monitor it to see if it's moving in exactly the same opposite direction from you. And so in order to do this, there's something called VRM and EBL. The VRM is just a circle that you make bigger and bigger or smaller and smaller until it's on the target. And then that circle is, say, a 5-mile circle, and you put it on the target. That target is 5 miles from you. That's called a variable range marker, and you just use the button to make that thing, and you tell the range of a target. And the same thing, EBL is the electronic bearing line. You put that off and tell what the bearing off the bow is. So your bow's here, the target's over there, so it's 45 degrees off the bow, 5 miles away at the crossing of the EBL and the VRM. That gives you range and bearing to the target. And if you know your lat and long and the range and bearing of the target, you can calculate that target's lat and long. So that's a useful thing to be able to do. And ARPA, the automatic radar plotter apparatus, allows you to do this more or less automatically. You take your cursor and you put it on a target and you say acquire, and then the ARPA or MARPA circuit in the radar will actually acquire that target and monitor its range and bearing, and then it will tell you what the course and speed of that target is, and that's fairly useful information, but it also tells you what the closest point of approach is, which is really useful information. It's going to draw a vector from that target and show you how close it's going to come to your boat. It's going to predict where that target will be in the future and how close it will come to your boat if it maintains current course. So the ARPA feature is something that if you have it and you know how to use it, can be very useful, especially if you're going into a crowded harbor that you don't know. And then the other thing that helps with that would be AIS. It's kind of off this subject, but AIS is Automatic Identification System. And the commercial boats now are required to carry AIS. You cannot run a big 1,000-foot boat into Milwaukee Harbor without an AIS, or Homeland Security is going to blow you out of the water. I mean, you have to have an AIS now. The AIS is a transponder unit that actually beams out what is the name of the boat and what it normally carries, and also its latitude and longitude and course and speed. So AIS can also give you that closest point of approach information. It can tell you when and how close that boat will be. CPA and TCPA are things that are read out by AIS and can also be calculated with an ARPA. So we talked a little bit about overlaying. Go ahead.
So you can, when you see a big boat out there, it's broadcasting it, and you know what it is. You know its name.
That's right. If you have AIS and there's a commercial, you'll have a list on your radar or your chart plotter that shows the names of all the commercial vessels that are within range that you're picking up. And it'll tell you what the name of the boats are, and then if you go on them, it'll tell you their course and speed, and it's really useful information. The other benefit you have from that, besides just the fact that you know where they are and where they're going, is they're more likely to talk to you if you have an AIS. In other words, if you're transponding and you're broadcasting out the name of your boat, they can see the name of your boat on their radar. They're more likely to say, hey, boat, get out of my way, instead of, or tell you your name, hey, midlife crisis or whatever the name of the boat is, get out of my way. And so that's really the biggest benefit. Well, not the biggest benefit, but it's an unadvertised benefit, is that the commercial guys will actually talk to you now, which they really don't like to generally.
So any boat can get one of those?
Yes. There's actually Class A and Class B AIS. Class A AIS was introduced about 10 years ago. It's used by all the commercial boats. And now Class B AIS just came out a couple of years ago, and it's designed for pleasure boaters. So there's room for thousands of them on the network. The Class A AIS is limited to the number of boats it can do, but with the pleasure boater version, it's got thousands. So
you can identify your friends.
That's right. It's very good for that. Yep.
Or stay away from them.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about how a radar operates now, and I don't know if some of you hopefully will like this part. It may go over the heads of some people if you don't know electronics. When the radar transmits, it transmits for a period of time. And I'm not going to give you real times, but I'm going to talk in microseconds. So a microsecond is a millionth of a second. So let's say it transmits for 1 microsecond. That would have a pulse length of 1 microsecond. And that packet of energy, then you have to stop transmitting until the packet of energy calms down, and then you can start listening. Well, the time from the time you transmit and then stop transmitting, that takes about, the wave travels about 80 feet. So in normal radar, the first 80 feet, you get nothing because you're still waiting to stop transmitting. You can't start listening until you stop transmitting. So the first 80 feet, you'll notice on the 1/8 mile range, a thing about the size of a quarter or a nickel, there's no targets there, nothing. That's because Mother Nature says you can't have it. So so then it transmits for a microsecond. Maybe it waits 5 microseconds, and then it spends the rest of that time listening, all the way up to a second. So most of the time, the radar is just listening. It transmits for just a second, it stops, and then it listens and listens and listens and listens, because it takes time for the thing to go out there and come all the way back. So as it goes around, it transmits, waits, and receives approximately 1,000 times for each revolution of the radar. So it's breaking the thing up to, for lack of a better guess, 1/3 of a degree increments all the way around. And so it then interprets the returns it gets from each of those transmit, wait, receive cycles into a picture on the screen. So how often it